Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees for Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. If you please stand and join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1.03, adoption of the agenda. It is recommended that the agenda for the December 9, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be adopted as presented.
Move for motion.
Second.
Been moved by moved by Holly and seconded by Amanda to adopt the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Into questions and comments from the floor section of the agenda. Item 2.01, representatives of the PTA. Is there anyone from the PTA to address the board? Not. Item 2.02, representatives of school employees. Item 2.03, representatives of the Mishawaka Education Foundation. Ms. Sauer.
Hello, everybody, members of the board. Just from Jane tonight, she just has a brief message for everybody. One is to stay tuned for a very exciting reveal of a program that we're going to start to increase awareness of mental health issues. That will be coming up next year, thanks to a grant from the MEF. And then she just also wanted to say happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2.04 is general public. I've been informed that no one has signed up to address the board under this item, which takes us into section for the consent agenda, section number 3. Item 3.01, approval of the minutes of the November 11th, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees. It is recommended that the minutes of the November 11, 2020 regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees be approved as presented. Item 3.02, approval of bills, warrants, and payroll. It is recommended that the bills, warrants, and payroll in the amount of $2,352,050.85 be approved for payment from the appropriate funds. Item 3.03, approval of the October financial report. It is recommended that the board approve the October 2020 financial report as presented. Item 3.04, approval of the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Bill to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Jeff. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This takes us into the Vision Initiative section of the agenda. Item 4.01, Roadmap to Reopening Plan, update number 10. Mr. Barker, Mr. Calderon, Ms. Hickel, and Mr. Levon.
Thank you, President Curry and members of the board. Tonight we will update you again. This is our 10th update on our reopening plan. And tonight we will update you on some current data for the district. And also you probably are following what Governor Holcomb is releasing. We'll share with you some numbers for personnel and human resources and how that's been going for us as a district. And then additionally, we'll share with you plans and planning that we have going on right now for second semester. So Mr. Laban will start us off tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. As we have thus far in each of our board updates, we would like to quickly go through some data with you and get a better understanding of what COVID-19 looks like here in St. Joe County, across the state, and then specifically tonight we're going to look at that in relation to School City of Mishawaka. When we look at the two metrics from our local health department, we're going to see that I need to go back. Thank you. We're going to see that the new cases per day based on that 7-day rolling average, one slide prior, I'm sorry, is sitting around that 320 range, while the number of active new cases here is sitting at 3,800. You may notice that a week or so ago, that week from November 20th through the 25th, that the numbers are a bit higher. Per Dr. Mark Fox, the deputy health official from St. Joe County Department of Health, that kind of uptick there can be attributed to an upload that was done by the state, the kind of batch uploaded results. When those results actually were coming from the entire month of November, they were just input during that window of time. So that's why we see that kind of bigger increase there during those 4 or 5 days. So we're not necessarily in a better state or condition than what we are then as to where we are now. And so they are a bit misleading. And while we're seeing a modest increase, if we are going to see any sort of significant uptick from Thanksgiving and those gatherings, those realities will certainly start to show themselves in the data here in the next 7 to 14 days. Next slide, please. Looking at the Indiana State Department of Health metrics, our 7-day positivity rate for the county is 14.62%. That is just shy of the 15% threshold that would have put that metric in particular in the red zone. And when we look at the weekly cases per 100,000 residents, we're sitting at 860 weekly cases, which firmly puts us in the red zone. That threshold is at 200 right now. And so together, combined, we remain in the orange zone at a 2.5. We are just shy. We are 0.38% shy of having been in the red zone this week. So we can obviously see what has been happening over the course of the weeks that we've been updating you visually. From a visual standpoint, obviously you can just see where we started. That first graphic there of the entire state is October 11th, all the way to just this afternoon at 12 o'clock where they released the most recent update there on the far right-hand side. Next slide, please. School City Mishawaka has been reporting our positive COVID-19 cases weekly to the Indiana State Department of Health via the dashboard that they produce in early September. Yet in an effort to be even more transparent with all of our stakeholder groups, we did develop our COVID-19 dashboard, thanks to Mrs. Jen Smith. And that could be accessed via our School City of Mishawaka website. Our quarantine data is updated daily. And then our positivity data is updated weekly on Friday afternoons. I wanted to obviously express again my appreciation to Jen Smith for creating this, to Darlene Cochran, Jenny Sanders, and all of our school nurses who are working to report these numbers to us daily. If we dig into these numbers a bit, I think what we're going to see is a pretty stark contrast to those 2 previous slides that we have been seeing, and what's happening across both the state and then locally here in the county. In Mishawaka, we continue to fluctuate roughly between 7 and 11% of our total population of students and staff that are in quarantine at any given point. The figures that you see here, most recently for the week of December 7th through the 11th, are updated as of yesterday. As of this afternoon, we have roughly 254 staff members and students who are in quarantine, which obviously, as you can see the trajectory there, that's a dramatic improvement from just a couple of weeks ago where we were sitting roughly in that 400 to lower 500 range of staff and students that were in quarantine during those weeks. Next slide, please. In terms of an internal positivity rate, we can see if we had a couple of big weeks there back in early November. That's something that we kind of discussed at our last school board meeting. We've obviously since seen a decrease in those numbers weekly. Pandemic start to date, if we include all pre-K through grade 12 students, both in person and virtual, and we include all of our staff, our records show that we've reported 134 positive cases. That's again a combined number. If you recall, and for some context, at our last meeting when we met, we talked on November 11th, that number was at 67. So we've jumped from 67 to 134 since November 11th to date. We've obviously felt every single one of those positive cases, but we really can't thank enough our teachers and all of our support staff who have worked really diligently. They've worked really hard to keep our students safe and to keep our buildings open, even at the secondary levels through Thanksgiving. Next slide, please. Back in early November, we reported the possibility of School City of Mishawaka being able to test eligible SEM employees for COVID-19. We talked about the benefits of what that would do for us as a school district and to allow eligible employees to safely return to the classroom or to their work responsibilities as quickly as possible, but in a way that's still aligned with all of the guidance and all the recommendations that have been put forth. At our last meeting, We were really early in the preliminary stages of our planning. But over the last several weeks, I need to give a huge credit to Mrs. Jenny Sanders. She's worked pretty tirelessly to get things in order for us and to make this service available for our employees. And we're very happy, if you can be happy about the situation, to report that we will officially begin testing just tomorrow morning. We have several individuals lined up to go. I also need to acknowledge and thank Mr. Troy Scott from R&R Benefits, Mr. Bill Agnew from Central Health Systems, and our partners at On-Site Health for their ongoing assistance throughout this process. Next slide, please. Some of the nuts and the bolts of our operation, we're going to be testing here at the Administration Center Monday through Friday. We've designated 2 blocks of time, both one in the morning and one in the afternoon, where eligible employees can get tested. We will be using the rapid antigen test. That's where that benefit comes to us, where we can expedite that timeline when it's appropriate. That test just takes 16 minutes to process from the time the individual is swabbed to the time that we get that positive or the negative test result. This obviously will be of no out-of-pocket expense to our employees, which is really nice. Who's the target for this? Our eligible employee. These are individuals who have been identified or have not been identified as close contacts and who are exhibiting symptoms at the time. That's what the rapid test, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to look for active disease inside of someone who is exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. Eligible employees must first be screened and they must be approved through the district prior to getting tested. We've obviously been really diligent in our planning. Again, kudos to the many individuals who have been part of this process. But it will be a learning curve, and we'll certainly keep the board up to date and informed as we go. And if we need to make any modifications to what we intend to do, we will obviously make you aware of that prior to doing so. Next slide, please. Lastly, before I turn it over to Mr. Caldroni, we want to share with the board an important update from the CDC and the Indiana Department of Health that we shared with our SCM families earlier this week. This newly updated guidance reflects the option to reduce the length of quarantine for individuals who have been identified as a close contact, but who are asymptomatic. So they're not exhibiting any symptoms common with COVID-19. And what that does is it allows the option to reduce from 14 days to 10 days, and in some cases, if they can meet specific criteria, down to even 7 days. So these recommendations have since been endorsed by the local health department, and we will choose to follow this guidance per that direction and implement those modifications here to what we're doing, our internal processes at the district. Once again, and as always, we'll keep you informed on how that's going, and if we need to make any modifications to those intentions, we'll make sure to let you know of that. But it's been a real benefit to us to be able to expedite that in a safe and responsible manner to get some of our employees back. We were able to bring back 20 employees who are currently out on quarantine. We were allowed to bring them back at that day 10 point as opposed to day 14. And in some cases have been, again, able to expedite that down to 7, which is a significant difference if we're talking 7 to 14 days of a teacher being out of his or her classroom, being able to be back and providing that direct instruction to students. At this time, I'm going to invite Mr. Caldroni up to the podium, and he's going to discuss some of our ongoing efforts to support our staff during the pandemic. Thank you.
Good evening. Just to kind of keep you updated and informed as we move forward, as we get closer to the beginning of second semester, I just kind of want to make sure everybody's on board and understands that we're planning on extending our temporary remote working options for our teachers and staff members moving forward into second semester. And if you remember from middle of August, late August, when we first brought this idea to you, it's going to look very similar. The same work groups are involved. Administrators, teachers, speech language pathologists, counselors, secretaries, art instructional assistants, occupational therapists, social workers, speech language pathologists, and school psychologists. Those are the groups, that's the work group that we're focused in on to use our temporary remote working option. 2 ways in which people can qualify One of them is obviously working, remote working while under quarantine, okay? Whether you're a close contact or you're tested and you're positive. Asymptomatic, obviously, our recommendation, and we always leave it up to the individual, but if they're asymptomatic, our people have really taken advantage of this and have been able to, when I say take advantage, have been able to work remotely from home and continue with their class instruction to their students. So it's really been beneficial. And we've also had teachers that, even though they were symptomatic and had some minor symptoms, they've continued on that same boat. So our teachers have done a very good job, and I think the majority of them have taken advantage of when they're in their situation to continue on with their class instruction. The other two options that go along with this, not just under quarantine, but you can work remotely if due to a family illness or a personal illness. And I'm not going to go through all this again. I talked about it in August, but as long as you have a doctor's note or permission from a doctor, okay, we have worked with our staff throughout the first semester in this area as well. One additional thing item that we've added to this is that there are sometimes special circumstances with a person in quarantine or a person with a family or personal illness that sometimes we may have to extend longer than just 10 days. And so we think that flexibility piece is also very important. The other thing we added to this one, moving on to second semester, is that in order to be approved to work remotely, the staff member will agree to meet all daily work expectations established by their direct supervisor and is expected to communicate regularly with their direct supervisor throughout their time working remotely. So just kind of want to let you know that we do plan on extending that to the different work groups that I mentioned. The next slide. If you take a look at these total numbers, this bottom one is important. And as you see the numbers going down, this is when we started, obviously, moving our secondary schools, John Young and Mishawaka High School, to virtual, okay, which has allowed us to free up some of our employees to move down to a role at the elementary level, okay, to assist in the system administration as well as teachers during that process. And it's worked well for us. It really has. Even though we're all sitting here tonight, would love to be face to face with our students each and every day. It's a pretty bad situation out there right now. We got to be careful, but we also need to make sure that we are providing those resources to our elementary buildings that they don't normally have. And I think it's really been a nice fit as I visited buildings throughout this week. Not all of them, but a good majority of them. Our people are happy. Okay, the people that have moved down from the secondary level at first were like, oh boy, I've never been involved in an elementary building before, but they've done a nice job. It's been a good transition, and they've all have spoken very positively about their experience. So if you take a look at our certified and classified openings, you'll see these numbers have really dipped since we've gone to the virtual, and we figured they would. Okay. But I think it's brought a lot of benefits down to the elementary level that they don't normally have, and we feel really good about that. And let me just spend a few minutes, another minute or two on this. After Thanksgiving break, we moved to virtual at the secondary levels, which allowed us to do a number of different things. Obviously, moving personnel and others down to our elementary schools from our secondary levels to provide assistance to not only the school leaders, but to our teachers within those buildings has been warmly received. This has allowed these individuals to take some of the burden off our elementary level teachers and staff. Well, you may ask, well, tell us a little bit more how it's taken some of the burden off. Well, these employees that have come down from the secondary levels are now doing some things that teachers haven't normally done, but have done since the beginning of the school year. And that it's allowed us to put an extra substitute teacher in just about every elementary building to help with unfilled positions. It's allowed some of the teachers that have come down, or some of the staff members that have come down from the secondary level to work as recess aides, cafeteria supervision in the morning, or cafeteria supervision at lunchtime, and has allowed for opportunities for intervention to take place in a positive way. We've also moved some custodians down from both of our buildings, John Young and the high school, in order to continue to focus on healthy buildings. And we've talked about healthy buildings. Corey and I have talked about that in just about every update, and we think this has been beneficial as well. And I think most important, it's allowed us to, through this transition, to keep all our employees working and receiving a paycheck, and also at the same time providing a service that benefits all of our elementary schools during this time period. Yesterday I was in a building at the end of the day, went to a retirement get-together at one of our buildings for an employee that's retiring, and I ran into one of our hall monitors that has been at the high school for several years. And I asked him how things were going. We had a brief conversation, and he pulled me aside and told me his experience at this elementary school that he was assigned to has been a wonderful experience, even though it's only been a week and a half. And I said, well, tell me about it. He said, and this is almost a direct quote. I said, tell me about your experience here and why it's been a wonderful experience. He said the teachers have been wonderful. They're very positive with their students, and the administrative team are clearly leaders here at School City of Mishawaka. So I thought that was a great way to end your day shortly after 3 o'clock, when you start getting when you start hearing some of those type of comments from people that originally were a little weary of moving down to the elementary level, and here they are now excited about what they've been doing at their particular schools, and the impact that our teachers, at the elementary level are still having with their students in their classrooms. So just wanted to share those things with you this evening. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I just want to quickly update you on our virtual numbers for elementary and secondary for second semester. As you know, our elementary families have made their second semester selections, and in addition to that, we have made adjustments for those students who were put on probation and were not able to show the necessary improvements to continue with virtual instruction second semester. This has reduced our overall elementary virtual numbers by 24 students total. These students will be coming back in person starting January 4th to receive more intensive supports and in-person instruction. As far as what the model will look like for second semester for our virtual students, we'll continue with our current virtual teaching schedule, and all of our current elementary virtual teachers have elected to continue to teach virtually for second semester. We have lowered the class targets for virtual sections in order to provide more individual attention and support, and we've also added a section for sixth grade and posted a virtual sixth grade teaching position. Our secondary families have also made their selection for second semester. These students who have not found success virtually have been placed on probation. Our second semester plan for John Young Middle School as well as Mishawaka High School focused on getting our most at-risk students academically and our upperclassmen back in person second semester. To participate all virtually second semester, students must be passing 5 or more classes and have 80% or better attendance in the third term, which ends December 18th. Those students who do not meet these requirements will be required to return in person for instruction second semester. In order to return to in-person instruction with our second semester plan on January 19th, we will closely monitor and assess community transmission. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Barker to make our recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Hickle. Mr. Modlin, if you would, just go back just maybe one slide, I think, from here. Yeah. While Mr. Calderoni was presenting, the second slide moved forward, and I just wanted to point out to you that purple line that's up there. The purple line represents the number of unfilled vacancies we've had for all employees. So this would be both certified employees and classified employees. And if you look prior to Thanksgiving, we were anywhere from 23 to 28 unfilled vacancies per day. And at our last school board meeting, we talked about, one of the concerns we had, first of all, with the growing numbers of cases, we were worried if we could stay in person with especially our secondary schools, but we were also worried and concerned if we could staff safely the needed personnel for what we needed to have to keep all of our schools open. And as you know, we made the decision based upon the recommendation from the local health department to close our secondary schools. And that part that Mr. Calderoni spoke to you about how that benefited us is best represented right there. We went from 23 to 28 vacancies. Then you see the Thanksgiving 3 days there reflected, which we were closed entirely. So those zeros really don't mean a lot since our schools were closed. But when you go there forward, we're anywhere from 5 to 9 unfilled vacancies per day. So we drastically helped our situation for the needed personnel we needed to keep our schools open. And when you see that and you see those openings, know that the personnel we were able to shift down helped us to fill those vacancies. Had we not been able to do that, first of all, we would have had more vacancies and we would not have had the needed personnel to keep our schools safely open. So the positive news tonight, and there is some, while Governor Holcomb today, very well articulated the issues we're having statewide, you are seeing our numbers drop modestly over the last couple weeks in terms of positive cases, quarantines, and you're seeing our numbers drop drastically for the needed personnel that we need to continue to operate at least as we are right now. So we're encouraged by that. We are concerned about how the holidays and different things, as Mr. Laban mentioned, may impact us. But there is some good news, and I think in the last few meetings we haven't talked about some numbers that were trending in the right way, and while they're modest, at least they're improving, and these numbers are significant improvements. So that's a really good thing for us, and it's enabled us to much better support our elementary schools. Mr. Emmons, did you have something?
The slide before this,
Yes.
I was wondering why the high school has like 4 times higher staff infection rate than the grade schools or the junior high.
These numbers actually reflect unfilled vacancies. They don't necessarily reflect positive COVID cases.
Okay.
They could be quarantines. They could even be unrelated to COVID for personal days or whatever. So, good question. We're also happy that we're going to be able to incorporate testing going forward. That should also enable us to reduce the number of vacancies that we have. We feel good about some things that are happening and hopeful to be able to see vaccines and things like that hit our communities and our country and lower those numbers even more. And then finally, with the second semester planning, we are hopeful to be able to get students back in schools, even at the secondary levels as well. As you know, we are closed through January 15th currently, and we'll wait to continue to follow the guidance from the health department and share our numbers with them as well over the next few weeks as we go forward. And it also gives, as Ms. Hickle articulated, a chance for our secondary students to show the necessary improvement if they want to stay in a virtual format. So we're giving them that time to do that both in their attendance and in their performance. So at this time, based upon the recommendation or the presentation, we're recommending that the Board of School Trustees approve the roadmap to reopening plan update number 10 as presented.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Emmons, second by Mrs. Parks. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I did have a question. When we're talking about our secondary students and, the schools are closed through the 15th. And I think we're on the right path of tracking these students and placing them on probation. Should they not meet the requirements of passing 5 classes and attending the virtual classes. Is there a contingency plan if the order to not have your secondary students go into the buildings is extended past the 15th? It seems like if we kick that can, these students might lose more than just perhaps like a semester of school. Perhaps they're gonna have to hold off their graduation. And I don't know the breakdown of seniors versus whomever, but seems like that could be a potential issue.
Yeah, Ms. Hickle, why don't you go ahead and take that one first?
I think your instincts are right. That same population that we've been fairly concerned about all year, regardless if that was our phase 1 virtual model or the hybrid model, back to all virtual, we have a subset of our students who are struggling, facing all kinds of challenges, whether it's an engagement challenge or pandemic-related challenge. And that population has been the central focus of the high school administration team, our teaching staff, our guidance counselors. I wish I had better news for you to say that that number was decreasing. That isn't the trend that we're seeing, unfortunately. And so with our plan to bring them back in person, we do feel like that's our best effort. So you're right, the longer we stay virtual, the more we feel our hands are tied. Our students are finding success. It's been nice to see them go back into all virtual versus hybrid. There's some of them that are re-engaging because they're not splitting the time and the attention between the two. So we hope that we can catch a few more that way. We hope that second semester can be a fresh start for many students when you think about credit attainment. But your instincts are exactly right. That population has been a concern and will continue to be a concern for us.
Gotcha.
There's
no right
Yeah.
answer, right? It's just,
We've added a social worker position that's shared between John Young and the high school precisely to continue to support those efforts. We're gathering our social workers, our guidance counselors, and some of our community partners next week to kind of talk about the trends that we're seeing, our most vulnerable students, and continue to try and problem solve ways that we can better connect them with resources, get them engaged. So while unfortunately the numbers are trending in the wrong direction, we have definitely not given up. We're digging in our heels and fighting it. But the engagement issue for students, particularly in secondary, has been an ongoing challenge.
Gotcha. Well, we appreciate everything that you guys are doing to help these students, especially the ones that are most at risk. And if you wake up at 2 a.m. with your light bulb moment, know that you'll have support.
Thank you.
Because we want to see that all of our students have success, and I know that I'm sure it keeps some of you awake and probably their teachers. But whatever we can do, we'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question, and it's one, every school community everywhere is facing. And it's the greatest challenge that we have is to engage students who aren't normally as easily engaged, and to do that remotely is a tremendous challenge for everyone. But there are great efforts going on to do that, but it is a huge challenge. What we're seeing, and as I have conversations with other superintendents, everyone is concerned about the number of failures that they see, the lack of attendance, those sorts of things. And when I say that, our numbers aren't out of line with the numbers I hear from other places, but they're out of line in comparison to when we're in a in-person model without a pandemic. So while we've seen some students re-engage, as Ms. Hickle said, since we've gone to the completely virtual environment, I've heard from teachers anecdotally that some are seeing better attendance now than when we were in the hybrid, because some kids didn't engage. But then you can also find teachers who will say that, something different. So it's a challenge.
Sure.
The pandemic impacts every family in difficult ways, but it impacts everyone differently as well. So we'll keep that fight going and do our best. And I know our teachers and staff throughout all our buildings are doing exactly that.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say that, note that this is the 10th update. I mean, which just goes to show that this is a moving target that we're continually have to readjust to. And this presentation, just like all the others before it, we show a great deal of very hard and thoughtful work. And we're very appreciative of the work that's being done here to protect our students and staff moving forward. It's been moved and seconded to approve the roadmap to reopening up late number 10 as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Which takes us into the reports and discussions section of the agenda. Item 5.01, October financial statements and monthly comparison. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Curry and members of the board. Starting with the education fund, Matt, if we could just scroll down. Again, we're traveling back in time a little bit to the month of October here, but following the same trend we've been looking at for most of the year. State tuition support pretty much right in line with where we would expect it to be. November and December, we will see a decrease in our tuition support, as we did see a decrease in our enrollment. But overall revenue is where we would expect it to be. Similar situation with our expenditures. Again, some savings within the education fund due to the COVID. But if you could scroll down just a little bit more, Matt. Yep, just down a little bit. You can see year-to-date fund balance just under 5.6 million. However, I did want to just mention yet again that we are withholding those Social Security tax payments. And as of October, in the education fund, we were withholding about $577,000 of those payments. So we're overstated, and the actual cash balance is actually just under $5 million. But again, following the cash basis of accounting, those funds are sitting in there. So again, no surprises with the education fund. Some savings, and we're happy with where the cash balance is as of the end of October. Scroll down a couple slides, Matt, to the operations fund. One more, please. Thank you. And similar situation in the operations fund. The revenue is about where we would have expected it to be as of the end of October. Similar situation with our expenditures, some savings in the operations fund due to COVID, but we ended the month of October with $2.7 million in the fund. But similar to the education fund with those Social Security payments, we have about $100,000 withheld in this fund. But no surprises with that fund, about where we would expect it to be. And the next fund is the school lunch fund. This is the one that's probably the most interesting because it shows us running a $330,000 deficit for the calendar year. Things aren't great in the food service fund, but they're not that bad. We still hadn't, as of October 31st, received our September reimbursement, which was pretty small. It was only about $32,000. We lost about $150,000 in the month of September in food service. If you remember the way we started the school year, again, we've committed to our employees and their hours and their benefits. We've continued to pay them, but we were not churning out nearly enough meals in September, and we knew that. So we lost a great deal of cash in this fund in the month of September. October wasn't as bad. The reimbursement is about $200,000. So again, we lost money in October, but not very much. And then November's reimbursement, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, is about $180,000. So when I remember, the food service has been depleted again. As Jerome mentioned earlier, we did repurpose some of the staff members. So some of the food service staff at John Young in high school has moved down to the elementary level, and they're helping with serving of the food and the dispersing of the food. So again, they are working. We are getting value out of them. But again, if we're not serving the number of meals, we're going to continue to lose money in this fund. The next fund, the textbook rental fund, not a ton of activity, but we did start to receipt money for the 2020-2021 school year. So we had $42,000 come in. And then typical at this time of the year, we had, I believe it was $1,000 in the textbook rental fund. That's a pretty insurance fund. Again, we added to our cash balance in the month of October, largely due to $123,000 of prescription rebates that was received. But again, we ended the month of October with just under $242,000. Payments sitting in that cash balance that would have otherwise been due. So again, we're doing well, not quite as well as what that number would suggest. But happy to answer any questions the board may have, but those are the financials for the month of October.
Are there any questions for Mr. Newman? If not, thank you very much. Item 6.01, the personnel report. Mr. Calderon.
President Curry, board members, and Superintendent Barker, it is recommended that the personnel report dated December 9th, 2020 be approved as presented.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Ms. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Pemberton to approve the report. Are there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8.01, recommendation to award bid for tax anticipation warrant sale 2021. Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Mr. Curry, members of the board. Notice of sale of tax anticipation warrants for School City of Mishawaka were advertised on November 12th and 19th in both the Mishawaka Enterprise and the South Bend Tribune. Those bids were due to be received yesterday, December 8th at 10 a.m. School City of Mishawaka received 3 bids for our tax anticipation warrant sale of $2,518,000. The 3 submittals were Centier Bank, First Internet Public Finance, and Oppenheimer. The lowest net interest cost for the sale of 2021 tax anticipation warrants is Oppenheimer at a net interest rate of 1.1358%. And we are recommending the board approve Oppenheimer for the sale of 2021 tax anticipation warrants.
Alex, I saw your note, and I want to tell you, I've spent a lot of years on public boards, and I've never seen a tax anticipation warrant where we could take the funds, invest them, and be able to make more money off the investment than the interest cost on the warrant. Unbelievable.
It doesn't seem right, but.
No, it doesn't.
But it's true. We will actually,
take
because of
it.
what we earn on our money when we deposit it in TCU, which is greater than the interest of the warrants, we will actually make money on these, so.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved for approval by Mrs. Parks, seconded by Ms. Roberts. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8.02, recommendation to approve sale of surplus property to CDM Technologies. Mr. Modlin.
Good evening. In October, we had requested approval to request bids for the sale of iPads. We have received those bids and have a high bid from CDM Technologies for $116,570 for those out-of-date iPads. They can pick them up as soon as tomorrow, and we will be getting payment by the end of January. So it was recommended that the Board of Trustees approve that sale.
Move for a motion.
Second.
The best money we've ever made.
There's quite a spread there. How do you account for that?
So some of the lower end ones, or the lower bids seem to be more private parties or private individuals and not necessarily a corporate entity. So when we've got the corporate parties there, when you get to those higher end numbers, they have a little bit more money and also already have buyers interested in these. So there's demand there. The CDM Technologies had already connected with the buyer to purchase all of them. So,
Thank you. So the motion to approve the recommendation has been made by Mrs. Parks, seconded by Mr. Emmons. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Modlin. Thank you. Item 9.01, second reading of policy number 2266. Ms. Pettit.
Good evening. This is the second reading of policy 2266 on non-discrimination of the basis of sex in education programs or activities. And is there any questions regarding that? Okay, so we do recommend that you approve policy 2266.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved for approval by Mrs. Parks, seconded by Mrs. Roberts. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pettit. Takes us into the recognition section of the agenda. Item 10.01, the ISBA Exemplary Governance Award winners for 2019. Mr. Barker.
Thank you, President Curry. For the next two agenda items, I would like to ask board members to stay after our meeting for some pictures, for photos that we would like to take. For this first one, it is coming from the Indiana School Boards Association, and this year they were unable to celebrate the Exemplary Governance Award recipients at the spring regional meeting. This Level 1 award recognizes a member's commendable efforts by demonstrating a desire for advancing the principles of good governance. Mr. Curry and Mr. Pemberton attained the commendable award this year by earning points through participation in training, seminars, and/or conferences. So following the meeting, I have a lapel pin for each of you from the Indiana School Boards Association. And then for the entire school board, you can qualify for awards in 4 categories based upon the collective Exemplary Governance Award status of its individual members and completing certain criteria as a unit. And so tonight, I'm proud to present the Commendable Achievement Plaque to our entire Board of School Trustees that we will hang here in the building. So that is a plaque from the Indiana School Boards Association for all of your participation in leadership activities with their organization. So thank you for your efforts to stay engaged with our state association and for your leadership, and that certainly recognizes that. Thank you.
Well, congratulations to the board. It's a collective effort here. Which takes us to item 10.02, another recognition item, Mr. Barker.
Thank you, President Curry and members of the board. So tonight, before President Curry closes the meeting of the School City of Mishawaka Board of School Trustees, it's my privilege to say a few words about our outgoing board members whose service in public meetings comes to an end this evening. Both former board president Jeff Emmons and current board president Dick Curry lead with the heart, and that was very evident to me from the time that I've been here and even the time that before I was hired as superintendent. Mr. Emmons comes from a long and proud line of Emmons family members who live and breathe Mishawaka and have served our district for generations. Mr. Emmons was president of the board in 2016 when taxpayers overwhelmingly voted to pass 2 referendums that had failed only 2 years before. This was a turning point for School City as taxpayers agreed to finance critical infrastructure and safety improvements, as well as technology for teachers and students. Like Mr. Emmons, Mr. Curry has had family members share their love of Mishawaka with him. As many of you probably know, Mr. Curry's mother also served on our school board. During Mr. Curry's 8 years on the board and the past 4 as president, he has worked tirelessly through some of the most gratifying and most challenging times in our history. Mr. Curry's wisdom, compassion, and leadership as board president has made this one of the most effective boards that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. He's always been available to me as the president when I needed to inform all of you or on incidents or issues that were ongoing in our school, and has offered me his guidance and wisdom and direction many times. So I appreciate that, and none more than during the pandemic over this last 9 to 10 months now. So I've learned a lot from both of these gentlemen during my tenure, and I value their expertise, their passion for School City, and their friendship. So they will always be Mishawaka cavemen, whether they're on the board or not, I'm confident. So, of course, we can't send them out without offering them an exemplar. So tonight, we have an exemplar for each of them. And again, we'll take some photos maybe with all of us after the meeting tonight. So I would just say a huge thank you to both of you for your efforts, and I appreciate you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to say?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to the community that put us in this position to do this and operate with the School City Public Schools of Mishawaka. And from the beginning to the end, the fellow board members, the superintendents, the administration, and the magnificent support staff and staff that we have at Mishawaka Public Schools has made it a very easy job. It's had its difficulties, but I leave feeling that financially we're in better shape, and we're offering even more avenues for our student population in their growth. And I'm happy to have been here. I feel an honor to have served, and I appreciate it, and I thank you all for it.
Jeff's being characteristically humble. I mean, if it weren't for Jeff, I mean, in working with Mrs. Parks and Mr. Emmons and the former board, Mr. Denny Wood and Larry Stilson, we would not be where we are today. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to the foundation that Jeff and his other colleagues on the board have given to us. As for me, well, it's been a real honor to serve the community and the children through the work on the board. But the greatest privilege has been the privilege of working with all of you. And you know, the exemplar is nice, but actually that's a credit to the work that's done every day at every level by everybody in the organization. And it really everybody in the organization should have one of those. We've done, I think, a really great job of growing our leadership capacity. You know, we have talent, great talent, a breadth and depth of talent at every level. And the really encouraging thing is that over the years, it's just continued to grow and get better and better. And so I'd like to take the opportunity actually to recognize and welcome two of our new members to this fantastic team. That's Melissa K. Johnson and Angie Lehman. I don't know if you want to stand up and be recognized here, but you're joining a great group of people. Congratulations on your election. I know you'll do a great job, and that the school, everybody is looking forward to meeting you and to working with you. And I'm sure that the system is going to benefit and improve from your new talents and fresh perspectives and your passion for the schools. And I hope and actually expect that, quite confident that you'll find the work as meaningful and personally fulfilling as I have. So best wishes for your terms, and welcome aboard.
I would like to say a few words to both of you. I'm going to start with Jeff because I feel connected to Jeff. Jeff kind of led the way. When I decided to run the first time and lost, Jeff reached out after the fact when he found out I was going to run again. And even though Jeff has a very spunky sense of humor and he's very outgoing, he's very personable, he is very committed to the city of Mishawaka 100%. Though you can find laughter in the things that he says, he is committed to always standing for the better good of the community, and he has been compassionate and respectful and diligent, and his family is wonderful, and they've always been charismatic. And so he was here before I got here, and so I've had a long time to sit and watch him, and I've spent time with him at the barber shop. And you will be missed. There's a sense of security seeing Jeff Emmons in the building, and the fact that you feel like it's status quo and we all just keep moving. And so I appreciate who you are. I appreciate your vision to enlighten me and direct me when I had questions, and that you, even though it wasn't the popular choice at the time, it was something that you could see past the collective decisions. And so I appreciate that and enjoy retirement of the board. So you're welcome. Dick, I don't even know how to talk about you because it is one of those situations where you very seldom meet people who are literally for the greater good of everyone else. And you put people in positions and give support and dedication, and you're soft-spoken and you're delicate when needs to be, and you're aggressive when it needs to happen. And I find peace when you speak. Sometimes I am very loud and agitated and confrontational, and when I am done speaking to you on the phone or we're having conversations, I feel less hyper or, agitated. So I feel like you have a calming sense about you, and I will miss that part of it. And I also think that working with you through the referendum time and being at your meetings in the city and all of the work that you did there really led us to a referendum that was going to work, because you have no secrets, you are an open book, and you care about the whole picture. And so I think that you and were one of the biggest leading forces in the referendum passing. I am going to miss the calmness that you bring. I'm going to miss the communication that you bring to us when you talk to us individually. I've never felt like there was one board member or one situation that was greater than the other. And so I appreciate all of your work and all of your diligence and your sense of community and respect and love for us.
Thank you.
I'd like to, instead of addressing each of you individually, would just like to make a couple of comments about both of you together. When Holly and I first came on the board 6 years ago, this place was a mess.
I didn't want to say it.
And I will. This place was an absolute disaster. And, you know, as a business owner, I look for certain key indicators every day to determine what's going on that's right, what's going on that's wrong, and have to make decisions accordingly. And there couldn't have been an indicator within this organization that was positive 6 years ago. I mean, it was an absolute disaster. And under Jeff's leadership, this board came together and said enough is enough. And let's do what's right, and let's make the school system what it should be, something that's good for our children and for the community. You two played an integral part in the transformation that has occurred over the last 6 years, and we couldn't have done it without you. And I know it was a team effort, and I know there were a lot of people that had an impact on what happened, not only the staff, central staff, but the staff in the schools, the different people that were brought in initially. But I'm here to tell you, without you two, we couldn't have done it. And I think the community isn't really aware of what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot that happens. It's not just the board meeting, it's what happens behind the scenes. And the hard work that you guys put in, unbelievable. Total commitment. I appreciate it. Thank you much, and we're going to miss you.
I'd like to echo what Bill and Holly have said. You guys have done some heavy lifting over your respective 8 years, and the work you put in for the referendum was phenomenal. The leadership that you've provided to the rest of us, to this community, has been sensational. It's sparked the part of the community that we all love the most, and that would be engagement. It's one of the reasons why I decided to seek appointment to be here, because I wanted to seek your guidance and follow in your footsteps and carry on the legacy that you've started. Jeff, you are by far one of my favorite people. You bring humor and lightness to every situation while quietly analyzing everything. And you come up with these questions, and I'm like, did Jeff Emmons just ask that? Mm-hmm. And it's a skill I hope to attain someday. It's truly remarkable. And Dick, you are the definition of public servant. The way you have served this community, not just school city of Mishawaka, but this county, this state, we're your people, and you continually give back, whether it's to your clients at your law practice or it's the students within the school corporation. I haven't met a single person that has a single negative thing to say about you. And I'd like to continue that. You are a phenomenal person, and your leadership over the last 3 years that I've been on this board is something I hope to attain someday. I want to be like you, Dick Curry, and
Be careful what you wish.
and I appreciate your calmness. I appreciate your analysis. I appreciate your kindness. And I hope you enjoy the next phase of your public service, and I hope to be a part of that. So thank you both for your service, and I look forward to seeing you around.
Thank you all. You're all too kind. And before I choke up, we're going to go into the last item on the agenda, public announcements, item 11.01. The winter break is from December 21st through December 21st, 2020 through January 1st, 2021. The Administrative Center and the main offices at John Young Middle School and Mishawaka High School will be open except for December 24th and 25th, 2020, and December 31st, 2020, and January 1st, 2021. The elementary schools will be closed for the entire duration. The next regular meeting of the Board of School Trustees will be held on January 13, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Administrative Center here at 1402 South Main Street, Mishawaka. A meeting for the reorganization of the Board of Finance will also occur, as well as the special meeting for the reorganization of the Board of School Trustees, where our new board members will be taking the qualifying oath for members of the Board of School Trustees for the state of Indiana. Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, we are adjourned, and best wishes to everyone for safe and happy holidays. Thank you.